Hi, y'all, and welcome to this special episode of Disrupt Your Now with Monique Clarke, a new friend of mine who I'm very excited to tell y'all will be on Colin Garrett's car this weekend at Virginia International Raceway. Monique owns, oh gosh, Lioness Defense. Is that right, Monique?
Yes, ma'am.
Monique. I have another friend named Monique, and I almost called you. Okay, Lioness Defense Firearm Training. I just looked at it and I already forgot it. Anyway, Monique owns Lioness Defense Firearm Training, and she is a U.S. Marine, so she knows her stuff. She's a certified firearms instructor in the Marine Corps. So, Monique, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to call you Monifa and Monique at the same time because of my friend. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Monique, introduce us. Let us know what your background is, how you got to where you are, and how you ended up starting your own business.
Yes, ma'am. Hi. Well, one, thank you for having me, you and your audience on the show. I really appreciate that. And as you said, my name is Monique. I'm the owner of Lioness Defense Firearms Training. And my story starts like anybody else. I was born and raised in New York, Bronx, New York. My parents are from Jamaica. I was first generation born here in the United States. I grew up in New York, had a pretty good life. I can't complain. As I got older and I went to college, you know, I was stubborn. My parents separated after I graduated college, so not really getting along with either one of them. I was kind of like, I'm just gonna go do my thing, right?
Yeah. Typical though. Hey, I think we're all like that a bit.
Right. I was working and going to school full time. So when I started college, I was working two jobs as a waitress and a bridal attendant. So I would, in between school, I was going to work. So nine times out of 10, I was just doing stuff, either school.
Yeah.
Really didn't really get any sleep as a teenager. That kind of carried on into the Marine Corps too. But
Mhm.
um, I wanted to finish college, and it started to get financially heavy for me at that age. I was 19 when I joined. So I joined the Marine Corps, and um, my first duty station was Okinawa, Japan. That was in 2005. So
Mhm.
around 2006, around late 2006, I had done two by that time, rifle range. So annually, we are supposed to qualify on
Mhm.
the rifle range in the Marine Corps. So I shot expert every time that I was on the range, and it's something that I enjoy doing. Mind you, I'd never touched a gun before. I, being born and raised in New York, the concrete jungle, guns were nothing for me, right?
So you just had a natural talent for it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Well, in boot camp, I'll be honest with you. In boot camp, I shot marksman because my drill instructor was yelling at me the whole time.
Right.
So I was a little nervous, right?
Yeah.
So I was a little shook up while they were doing that. But after that, when no one was yelling at me the whole time,
Yeah.
I did really well. And it kind of became a competition with the Marines in my unit to see who
Mhm.
could shoot the highest. After the second rifle range we went to, we had gotten slated to deploy to Iraq.
Mm.
And before you go to any deployment, all the Marines have to train their annual training, rifle range, swim qual, all the different trainings that we have to do. So
Yeah.
rifle range was one of them, and we had a large detachment going. So we had around 300 Marines that had to deploy. So they were like, "Hey, we need marksmanship instructors." I'll do it, right?
That's good. Yeah.
I'll do it. There's requirements that you had to meet. You had to be at a minimum for a combat marksmanship coach. You had to have a minimum of a sharpshooter.
Mm.
So you have a marksman, a sharpshooter, and an expert. And to be a combat marksmanship trainer, you had to be an expert. So
Yeah.
I went and did the trainer program. Um, we we qualified all 300 of those Marines in a 2-week time frame.
Wow.
Yes, it was a lot.
That's a lot. And I bet some of them couldn't pass initially, so y'all had to
They had to
the
requal.
training.
They had
Yeah.
to requal, yes. And
Mm.
I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed
Mhm.
it a lot. So after we came back from Iraq, we did another deployment, and then I went to Quantico. So intermittently throughout my career, I was able to train Marines. It's not always a continuous thing depending on what's going on, but anytime
Yeah.
it was a rifle range and I was able to, I volunteered to coach. So when I was a sergeant, if I'm not mistaken, I was a sergeant, I qualified on the range and I shot the third highest on the range that year. And the marksmanship, the pistol team, the Marine Corps pistol team, because they have a shooting team,
Mhm.
asked me if I wanted to join. I couldn't though. I would have really loved to, but I had just had my son.
Oh,
So I have two boys, 12 and 13.
oh, but
They-
that's a good reason to not be able to do it. If you're not going to be able to, at least have a good reason for
Yes,
it.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So uh, I wasn't able to do that, but I still really love to shoot. I love to shoot. I bought my actual personal own gun that same year too, as well, in 2008. That was the first time I bought a gun. It was a pistol. It was a 1911 Kimber,
Wow.
silver stainless steel. I love that gun. It's a 45. Still have it. My favorite gun. Um, and throughout my career, I just continued to shoot on my own time. I would take family, I would take friends, and I would just go shoot and have fun.
Mhm.
Um, in 2019, I took a friend with me to the range and I just taught her how to shoot because she wanted to learn. And she was like, you're really good at teaching. You should probably start your own business. I laughed it off when she said it, right? I was like, you're funny. Yeah, I'll try one day, right? And then
Mhm.
COVID hit in 2020 and I got quarantined 3 times in like a couple of months time frame.
Wow.
It was either someone came in the office and coughed, someone that was there, kids had COVID, so we all had to quarantine. It was just continuous.
Mm.
So one day I was at home for 2 weeks because we couldn't go into work. And I was like, you know what? I will probably try to start my own business. Because at that time I was teaching. I was at the schoolhouse teaching, and I really liked to teach. I was teaching people about my military occupational specialty as the subject matter expert in the field. So my passion for teaching and my passion for shooting, I was like, that actually is not a bad idea.
Yeah, it's a great combination.
Yes, ma'am. So I did some research. I reached out to a couple of names that I came across on Facebook. I just started Googling random people and searching for stuff.
People who own firearms instruction businesses?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I kind of cheated. I went on the NRA website and tried to see who was teaching classes, and I just reached out to the.
But that's smart. That's not cheating. That's smart. And that's what most entrepreneurs don't bother to do. You were doing your research. So.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I reached out to a few people, just asked them a couple of questions, and kind of went from there.
Mm-hmm. So where were you living when you started it?
I was living in Richlands, North Carolina. I was stationed at Quantico, or not Quantico, sorry, Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. So I lived in Richlands at the time.
Okay. So when you started it, were you like teaching people at night, or how did you get it started?
I did mostly training before I got it started. So I went to the NRA, took their basic classes, their instructor classes. I got certified on those. I reached out to another coach that was a trainer that was in North Carolina at the time. I actually bumped into him at a restaurant because I was out with a bunch of my Marine friends because we had someone leaving. And I looked at the vehicle and it said Lion Hearts on the back. But at this time, I had already came up with the name.
Uh-huh.
I saw lion hearts on the back and I was like, that's weird. So I looked and, someone knew him that was in my group and they were like, oh, that guy's a firearms trainer. I was like, really? They were like, yeah. So I went over to him and I just talked to him. I was like, hey, I heard you're a firearms trainer. I just started my own business. Do you mind like giving me some pointers, how you started? And me and him had a conversation. His name is Troy. And he kind of helped me along the way. He helped me further get established in the business itself. So that's how I was able to get it started, with just kind of reaching out to folks.
That's awesome. Those are two things that a lot of people don't do: the research to see what other people are doing, and the reaching out to other entrepreneurs, because in general, most entrepreneurs do want to help other people because we've all been through so much that when it's somebody who is sincere and really really wants help and is willing to accept it. So that's really cool that you reached out to him and it worked out that way.
He did. And some people you'll come across and like, I'm not helping you, right?
Yeah. And those people, the people that act like that are usually people who are insecure in their own business and they feel like if they help you, you'll take over something from them. But if you're good enough at what you do, that's not going to happen.
Right.
And there's plenty of clients for everybody.
Yes.
Nobody can handle every single client.
Correct. That is absolutely true. And we learned that along the way because we would both have full classes.
Yeah. And it can be just as hard, it can be just as dangerous for a business to grow too fast.
Yes, ma'am.
As not fast enough, because if you bring in too many clients at once and you can't keep up, you get burnt out or you don't do a good job, then, it's like a death knell for it.
Because they will tell. They will tell on you very quickly.
So how did you get your first clients? Was it people that you already knew, or how did you do that?
So like I said, I worked at Marine Corps Combat Service Support Schools. That's the name of the school where I am in the logistics field. So I had around 12 or 13 instructors in my shop. Mm-hmm. And I was like, y'all are coming to my class. So they literally, most of the people in my first class, except for maybe one person, were my coworkers and their wives.
That's great though, because that gives you people that you're already familiar with, so you don't have to feel as nervous. And they probably felt more open to actually give you feedback than strangers might have. Really legitimate, sincere feedback.
Oh, they did. They held no bars on me. They told me how.
Especially since you do them through work, Yeah. So, where are you up in the Quantico area now?
Yes, I am.
So, if somebody wants to train with you, is it all in-person classes? Do you do anything virtual?
All classes are in person. I am working towards doing virtual classes just in case we have another pandemic style issue.
Yeah.
But all our classes right now are face-to-face. In Virginia, it has to be face-to-face or it won't count towards your ability to apply for a permit. So it has to be one-on-one classes.
Okay, gotcha. And I'm sure every state is different. Yes. I didn't think about that. But if somebody wants to take a class and they're not trying to get certified, they just want to do it, would that matter? I mean, like technically, if somebody just wanted tips and stuff,
I guess tips and stuff. I teach regular classes, just not concealed carry, and I do one-on-one training.
Oh, okay.
One-on-one time with me, they absolutely can just let me know. I get text messages all the time.
Nice. Well, I wanted to tell you that my friend Jeff Reed is on here, and he said thank you for your service.
Thank you for your support, sir.
He's awesome, and I didn't want to miss sharing that with you, and I knew if I got too far into us talking, I would forget. Hey, Jeff, we're glad to have you here. So, Monique, what has been the hardest thing that you've had in building your business or juggling it? Because you're still active duty, right?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you think has been the hardest part for you?
I would say the hardest part was the juggling portion between being a single parent, active duty military, and continuing to be a student to my craft and training. That has been the most difficult part, to find the time and not to cheat my children out of my time too as well.
Yeah.
Right? I kind of try to even it out, and I take them to the range with me too, just and to buy the time as well. But I think that was the biggest challenge for me, was evening out my time between my children and the business, because work is work. The Marine Corps pays me and I have to go to work. So
yeah. Yeah, you're so right about juggling things. I started my business in 96 and I owned a different one before that. And so I had two little kids. They were born in 88 and 90. And I had a father-in-law who had Alzheimer's living with me. And so that whole thing, family has to come first. And of course your job also. And so that is something that's really hard for people to juggle. And a lot of people just give up.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Something you said a minute ago, it was a third thing I was going to say that you did, and now I forgot. Oh, the training. Training. That's a third thing that you did that a lot of people don't do when they're starting their business or they already have a business, is keeping up with their own training and their own expertise. A lot of people get so busy working in their business that they stop working on it and they stop working on themselves.
Yes, it's very easy to do that because I've fallen into some pits of it myself. But training is very important, especially in this field, in firearms. It's like any other skill. It's a perishable skill, right? So if you're not training, you're not doing yourself any justice, and you're doing your students and your clients a disservice. So I continue to train all the time. My mentor, seek out a mentor. Biggest. Seek out a mentor. Do not do this by yourself.
I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that most business owners make, myself included. I never had a true mentor until I'd already owned my business for like, I don't know, probably 20 years, something like that. I can't remember. But yeah, because it's like, you're like, oh, I can do it myself. And I mean, I did fine. I did okay, but I would have done so much better. And a lot of the things that mistakes that you make and everything along the way, if you have somebody objective that you can bounce it off of, you're a lot less likely to make those mistakes.
Yes, ma'am.
Because when you ask family and friends, typically they are either worried about, they want to protect you, and most family and friends don't understand what it's like to own a business. So they're not good people to ask because they want to protect you. So they're generally going to give you advice that they feel like protects you. And then it's hard to find sometimes that right person. So the person that's your mentor, is it somebody through the Marine Corps that you already knew, or how did you hook up with them?
No. So my mentor is Akil Kader. He's co-owner of Citizen Safety Academy in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I met him when I went to a training event. I went and took the basic instructor course for the National African American Gun Association. So he was actually the instructor for that class.
Oh, okay.
Just being in the class, and his co-owner is Tiffany Johnson. She's also an amazing instructor and an amazing shooter. Their dynamic together as instructors just spoke to me through the class. Like, I was in awe of them the whole time. And I pestered the heck out of him for months.
Pestered him to be your mentor?
Yes, because he wasn't
time, right?
No, I would message him, I would call him, and I'd be like, hey, what do you suggest? What classes do I take? I would ask him random questions about stuff.
Funny.
And then we met up again at the tactical conference earlier this year, 2022, that's ran by Rangemaster Tom Gibbons. And there, the relationship just developed while we were out there. And he called me afterwards and he was like, you did tell a couple people I was a mentor. And I'm like, yeah, I'm her mentor. So he was like, I'm going to take you on. I don't have any mentees and I haven't been doing it, but because I see a lot of you in me, I'm going to do this. I got you. And I was like, yes.
That's so cool. And it shows that persistence.
Yes.
Don't give up. My friend, Andrea, she and her husband wrote the book, Go for No. And that's her thing. Don't let the no's stop you, because the more no's you get, the closer you're going to get to a yes. So the fact that you kept asking, you wore him down, but he also saw that you were very sincere, because I'm sure a lot of people ask and then they just go along their merry way. And he was probably like, glad I didn't work with them.
Right. No, I'm not that person. I am not that person.
Well, I'm curious because there's so much negative press and everything about guns right now. And you can apply this to almost any kind of business with certain types of things. So how do you get over that negative stereotype? Or has it affected you at all in your business? Maybe it hasn't since people are approaching you. But do you ever have people that give you a hard time, even if they're not like customers and stuff?
Honestly, I haven't really had anyone give me a hard time. I think because a lot of people know me well enough to know that even though I'm a super 2A supporter and I'm a gun nut and all this other stuff, I'm a human being first, and I care about people. I will never let anything, to include my love for firearms, overshadow the fact that I am morally sound and I'm a human being first. So I do care that people are being subjected to violence with, the use of firearms. No, I haven't really had anyone heckle me about it that I know, or even on my website or my pages or any social media for that matter.
That's good. And I think probably a lot of it is because of the way you carry yourself and the way that you operate your business. And, you're not all gung ho like, let's go out and get people or whatever. I've looked at your stuff and I've looked at your Facebook page and everything. And so I would think if somebody did want to give you a hard time, they would want to give anybody a hard time. Because you definitely don't post anything or have anything on your site that I can see that would make anybody do that. But I was really curious because, like, even in my business, so my core business is web and marketing strategy. And so around that, there's so many charlatans out there that, they know how to update a web WordPress site, or they know how to set up a social media account. So they automatically think that they're an expert. And when they can't do stuff, then people judge everybody else by that. They don't understand. They don't understand how to tell the difference between qualifications.
Right.
I think that's helps you a lot, though, the fact that you are a Marine and that you're a firearms instructor for the Marine Corps. I mean, you automatically have that legitimacy, because not everybody obviously can do that, even if they are in the Marine Corps.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I will say and I'm probably going to get some slack for this, but I will say there's a big difference between teaching in the military and teaching in the civilian sector. We go by different rules. So better rules. What we do in the military, we cannot do in the civilian sector. And I have to make sure I remind people of that. Yes, if you're a firearms instructor in the military, they might know how to shoot. Just understand that you need to make sure that you're vetting your instructors. Because there is a steep learning curve shifting from military coaching to civilian coaching. It's a different set of rules. And also, we're a little rough Marines, right? When we talk to Marines, hey, it's a little abrasive sometimes, but you can't do that with civilians, especially civilians that are carrying guns, right?
Yeah.
I do make sure that my students are aware, or anybody that asks about firearms, that they vet their instructors and make sure, do they have qualifications? What qualifications are? Do they have insurance? Biggest thing, make sure you have insurance. Do they have any medical training to make sure if there is an accident that they know how to take care of it before an EMT or 911 comes? But not to veer off too far to the right on that. But yes, there is a big difference. But nonetheless, I do hold dear the fact that I am a CMT in the Marine Corps. So.
Well, and those are great points, because I think most people who aren't already used to being around firearms would never even think to ask most of those questions that you just said. They're like, do they know how to shoot a gun? Do they know how to hit something? That's all they know how to ask.
Yes.
Part of the reason that I ask about whether you get negative, people acting negatively towards you, a friend of mine, Tim Larkin, is a self-defense expert and with hand-to-hand combat guns and everything. And he wrote a book called When Violence is the Only Answer. And it wasn't promoting violence. It was promoting being prepared if there's a predator after you. These are the things that anybody can do to help themselves be more likely to live through, an attack from a predator. And he actually ended up banned from like the UK and some other countries because they said he was promoting violence. And it was like, that's so weird.
That's kind of like Facebook posts. Before, like, they'll post an article, and before anybody reads it, because of the headline, they'll assume they know what the content is, and they probably didn't even read his book.
Exactly. So he was banned from the UK. He was banned from social media platforms. And it's crazy because, he has decades of experience. He's one of the people that helped develop the hand-to-hand combat program for the Navy, for the SEALs back in like the 80s when warfare was transitioning. But you just don't ever know. But a really good lesson from that for people listening, though, is that's a reason that you can't have your whole business based on social media platforms and
Right.
so forth. Even if you have a lot of followers and groups and everything, you still have to have those email addresses and be connected with people outside of that, because anytime you don't own the platform and the list and everything,
Mhm.
they can yank the rug out from under you at any point.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I'm sorry that happened to him.
Yeah. So you haven't had any, have you had any issues like that on social media where you make a post and it ends up getting banned even though it's not something?
Negative. I'm very careful. I'm wordsmithing.
Good. Okay.
Wordsmithing. So I try that. I've posted stuff that's probably woof, excuse me. I'm sure I've posted things that were probably controversial, but not worded to where it would have gotten me banned.
Yeah.
I would pose questions. For example, I'll pose a question that says, "Hey, how do you feel about arming teachers?" Right? Question mark.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be two sides to how people see things.
Mhm.
So I wordsmith a little bit. I never try to come out directly and say, "Hey, violence, is the answer for some of these situations." No, I usually put it in a way that people can have conversation and there's dialogue underneath the post. So
Yeah.
now, if they ban the people under the post, that's not my fault.
That's true. Yeah. No, but that's really good advice. No matter what somebody's business is, that's good advice to pose things as questions,
Yes,
because even outside of the controversy, that gets people involved.
absolutely, absolutely.
So, when are you going to be moving around with the military? Are you going to be retiring pretty soon, or will you need to move your business?
I retire August 1st of 2024.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's not going to be that long then.
No, ma'am. I'm already working towards some employment to include starting my own business.
Okay.
My intent is to work with the Secret Service as a firearms instructor. If you're out there, Secret Service,
Yeah, Secret Service.
but I do want to work with the department,
Mhm.
the State Department, to be a firearms instructor in some capacity, and I also want to start my own range. So I want to build my own indoor range, which is a very, very steep bill. So I'm
Yeah.
probably to do an outdoor range first to fund my indoor range.
Okay. Well, when you're here, Racing for Heroes has an outdoor range.
Yes, I know.
And yeah. And then Tim actually he has an indoor range in Vegas that I've shot at. And then he has an outdoor one outside of town. So I haven't been to that one. But it's really cool though. And I'm not proficient. I mean, I know how to shoot a gun. I can hit targets and stuff,
Mhm.
but I'm definitely not a gun expert, but it was still a lot of fun to go. And and for people out there that are listening, you might be like, oh, why would I ever want to go? It's fun,
Fun.
and you're in a very safe place, and you have an expert telling you what to do and how to do it.
Ab-
So just like anything else, like somebody that's learning to drive a car, you have to be with the right people.
Absolutely. And it's fun. Set goals for yourself. That's another thing. Like,
Mhm.
um, go with somebody that knows what they're doing and set a goal for yourself. Either set a goal to hit the target 9 times out of 10, or how fast you can draw if you're a little bit more experienced as a firearms enthusiast, or just going to shoot. I always set a goal for myself before I go to the range, especially just like timing myself on a draw uh,
Mhm.
for concealment, right? Because as a defensive shooter, the whole point is to be able to acquire and hit your target fast as you can before they can hit you. So yeah, my goal is to have a sub-second draw from concealment, and
Wow.
I'm working towards it. My last time at the range, I did a 1.39
Wow.
draw. So I'm working down towards the sub-second. It's a little bit of work, but I'm working towards it.
That's amazing, but you're perfecting your craft.
Yes,
The
absolutely.
more you perfect your craft, the better clients you get, the more you can make, everything else. So y'all listening, this applies to everybody. It doesn't matter what kind of business that you're in. It applies to everybody. And the thing about shooting, one thing that reminds me of, and people will probably be like, this is stupid. It's nothing like it. But it reminds me of playing golf, because you are in competition with yourself,
Yes.
constantly perfecting your own movements and everything else. And everything's in your head and in your body, and there's not so much that people can do,
Mhm.
that can help and affect
Yes, ma'am.
negatively or positively. You have to put that work in.
Right. And I get so frustrated with myself sometimes. It's like, that was a horrible shot, right? But
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. A lot of times you're just in competition with yourself because you want to do better. I always want to do better for my students. So, which is
Mhm.
another reason why I continue to train all the time.
So, do you get most of your clients through word of mouth, through social media? Or are they people that already know you? Or
Combination.
what?
It's a combination of things. I talk to people all the time, and if I'm around folks, even at work, I'll be like, "Hey, when's the last time you went shooting? You want to go shoot?" Right? And a lot of times, I get my clients as references. So people at work, I'll take them shooting, or they know that I shoot, and they're like, "Oh, do you give classes?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I give classes, right?" And I do one-on-ones. So a lot of it is word of mouth and social media, but most of it is word of mouth.
That's good. That's great because you're not depending on somebody else. You're not depending on selling ads and all that stuff. And your kids like it. I saw pictures of them on your Instagram.
Yes.
So they like shooting.
They do, they do. But
It's
scary
fun.
sometimes. It's like you're a super enthusiast like your mom.
It is fun though. Like I said earlier, my dad was blind, but we would target shoot with him,
Mhm,
and we would set up like cans and stuff against an old barn,
mhm,
and then we would throw rocks or something for him to get his bearings,
mhm.
and then he would target shoot and we would too.
Right.
So, it's something that you can do together, and even if you don't think you're ever going to use a gun, it forces you to use your senses
Yes.
in different ways. It forces you to focus in on everything, your sight, controlling your hands and everything.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Side alignment, sight picture, grip, stance, all that stuff. But they do. They shoot really well. They started shooting when they were 8, each of them, because one's 12 right now and the other's 13. The age they were allowed to go to the range was 8 years old, and it was their birthday gift. I was,
Oh,
you know your firearm safety rules, you know how to load it, and you can tell me, how to handle it and show me how to properly handle it. On your birthday, we'll go to the range. And they made sure they knew their rules, they knew the safety rules, they knew how to handle it, knew how to load a magazine, and showed me competence. So we went to the range, and they've been shooting ever since. Oh, they can shoot rifles like nobody's business.
that's awesome. Teaching responsibility, teaching ethics, everything else along with it. That you don't just go out and sling a gun around.
Right.
And the people out there that do mishandle guns give other gun owners a bad name.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, which it's just one of those things hard to overcome that, but it except through your behavior and the example that you set.
Correct. And I'd be remiss not to mention safety around children, right? That's one of the biggest issues that we have in general.
Mhm.
Children shooting themselves, shooting adults, shooting their parents because some people are afraid to teach their children about firearms or even introduce it to them. Children have natural curiosity. If they
Yeah.
see it, they're going to touch it. So why not mitigate that issue by telling them ahead of time, hey, this is what this is what it can do. You need to stay away from it unless mom or dad are around and you get permission, right?
Yeah.
And you also need to have it locked up properly. That's also an issue. Um,
Mhm.
gun safe, cable locks, all these different things, resources that they have to have these firearms properly locked up, people aren't using it. Um,
Mhm.
so that is another probably 20-minute conversation I have with my students in class about making sure they properly secure their firearms, and not just from children. There's adults that will pick up a firearm and not know what's going on with it and will negligently discharge it because they don't understand, proper handling. So I just definitely had to mention that it is beneficial to teach children about firearms ahead of time so that if they're in another house that does have firearms and you're
Mhm.
not aware and they come across it, they know not to touch it.
That's a great point because you're not always with your kids. And
Absolutely.
so even if you don't have guns in your own home, if you train them to respect them and how to handle them and everything else, that if they are exposed to that, especially because of movies and TV shows and everything,
Yeah.
it just guns are so glamorized, and like you said earlier, even adults, you see people holding the gun sideways and all that. You're like, that's a bunch of BS.
Right.
But, so people get so used to seeing that stuff that they almost become numbed to what can happen if they pick it up, or the kid that's trying to, get attention and seem cool or whatever, and finds a gun that they stick in their backpack and take to school.
Yeah.
Well, and not to get into political stuff, but I told my husband, and I am, but I don't mean it like that. I'm not trying to be political, because I'm totally get both sides of it. But it's like I told my husband the other day, when you're driving a car, you have to train for it. You don't just get to go drive it and act any way you want. There are fools that do it, but that doesn't mean that everybody that's driving a car is going to do the same thing. We're not getting rid of cars because some people don't know how to use them, or they mow down people or whatever. And I know I'm going way off track, but it's still related to every business out there. There's certain things about every business that can be controversial, or people don't understand, can be dangerous. Like even with me, you've got hackers, you've got spammers and all that stuff. And that doesn't mean it's legit, but that's what people do in our industry.
Yes, ma'am. 100% agree with you.
So do you expect to move your business after what do you expect to do? Well, I know you said you want to work for the Secret Service, so you'll probably settle somewhere around Northern Virginia.
Yes, ma'am.
And that way you can have your business and pursue that second career as well.
Yes, ma'am, I do. I was teeter-tottering on whether I would stay here or go to Virginia, but if I can get a job with the Secret Service, Georgia. But if I get that job with Secret Service, which I'm going to start working on soon, I already reached out to them earlier. I will most likely stay here. It's probably going to be closer to Maryland, because that's where they're based at as far as their training. But yes.
Yeah. So Georgia, did you say you're in Georgia now, or are you thinking about going there?
That was my other option, was Georgia.
Oh, okay. Okay. God, I keep thinking of things that I want to ask you, and then it flies out of my brain. And Jeff, if he's still here, he knows I'm like that anyway. It's like, ADD much? Oh, what was it? I don't remember. It'll pop in my head once you start talking again. So is there any advice, anything that you've learned as a business owner that you think maybe other business owners might not know about, or warning to new business owners, that a hard lesson that you learned?
Find a mentor.
Financial, you said?
Find the financial piece, yes, but find a mentor. What I will say is, even though I asked questions, I didn't know all the questions to ask. So they only answered what I asked them. Finding a mentor, I was better able to navigate my way through whatever challenges that I had with the business, because I was able to pick up the phone and call somebody and say, hey, I just came across this. What do you suggest? What I'll say is, with the biggest thing about finding the mentor and asking questions and doing the research is, if I knew the questions to ask prior to, or I had someone to ask them to, or just give me the advice, I would have saved a lot of money and a lot of time. Because if starting out with the firearms business, I'm like, oh, let me go get a slew of guns, right? A whole bunch of different guns. No, I could have got 5 of the same gun, trainer guns, and it would have saved me thousands of dollars.
Wow.
I don't need all those guns to train people. They need certain type. We start with the simple stuff and then we graduate to it. I would have saved a lot of money, but I'm not mad, because I have more guns that I get to look at and play with, right?
Yeah.
The range.
That's a great point, though, because if you don't ask the right questions, you can't get the right answers.
Right.
But if you don't know the questions to ask, you can't even answer. You can't even ask them.
Right.
And most people they'll answer whatever you ask, but they're not thinking proactively, trying to think of questions that you might not think to ask them.
Right. Absolutely. So
having the mentor helped you with that then.
Yes, ma'am. Initially, it would have been better sooner.
Yeah.
Now that I do have him, it's just been great. Like, he'll tell me, no, don't go to that class, go to this class. You're like, no, save your money, go here. Right. So he's super beneficial. That's
great. Yeah, and I saw that you're a certified instructor with the NRA and tell us the other one because I can't remember the acronym.
National African American Gun Association.
Yeah, so is NAAGA? Is that what they say? Or
yes, ma'am.
okay.
It's called NAGA.
Okay. I didn't even know that existed until I met you and I was looking at your stuff and I was like, oh, that's so cool.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
They've been 9 years now.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I'm really excited to meet you. I'm excited to have you on the car this weekend. Look, y'all, if anybody out there is around Virginia, North Carolina, wherever, around 100 miles or so of us, come to Virginia International Raceway this weekend, and you'll be able to see Monique's good Lord, business on the car. And if you come hunt us down with the team, you'll be able to actually meet Monique. So I'm really excited to meet you and excited to introduce you to Mike Ebach and those guys out at Racing for Heroes.
Yes, ma'am. I'm super excited about this.
Yeah, it's going to be so much fun. You'll love it. VR is a great road course. It's actually one of the top courses in the world. So it's a really exciting place to be, and especially exciting if you get to be on the car.
Yes, I cannot wait.
So tell everybody how they can find out more about you, how they can connect with you to learn more about what you do, and how they might be able to join one of your classes.
Yes, ma'am. So they can contact me at www.lionessdefense.com. I also have my Facebook page, Lioness Defense, and an Instagram page, Lioness Defense. So they can call my my business. I'm horrible with numbers, honestly.
Hey, man, I don't feel so bad because I've been forgetting things all night.
I know. I just had the number in my head. 571-466-0690. That's the number. But it's on my site. So
okay, it's on our site, and you can also rewind this after we talk if you need to hear it again. And I apologize that I've been so tonight. I had COVID about a month ago, and my brain is still foggy. I literally just had my first show after that Tuesday because I've been so out of it. But it's like I'm just like I can't concentrate. Everything's fuzzy. And Jeff's probably laughing because I do have ADD, but I also have an excuse this time. So.
I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thank you so much. And thank you for joining me. And I can't wait to see y'all Saturday.
Likewise. Thank you for having me and your audience too as well.
Okay. Everybody else, I will see y'all next Tuesday. Bye.